So this evening we're here to talk about the Water Quality Monitoring Network, which is all about trying to understand the state of our rivers and waterways. So next slide, Alex. So hopefully I'm singing to the converted here, in that hopefully everybody recognises that our rivers and waterways are in crisis. The government's own assessment against the Water Framework Directive found that only 14% of our rivers reach good ecological status and none reach good chemical status. And unfortunately, despite a lot of good words and also some effort on the ground, things are becoming worse, not better. Next slide, please, Alex. Now, obviously, there are lots of different causes of poor water quality, but the primary cause is agriculture. Of all of the failing water bodies, 2/3 were found to be being impacted by agricultural pollution, and whether that's diffuse pollution or point source pollution, agriculture is the main issue, contributing to issues around eutrophication, the enrichment of water bodies, which contributes to algal blooms, loss of biodiversity, and with the huge amount of soil going into our rivers as sediments, clogging up of redds, killing off invertebrates, fish eggs, and affecting the spawning of migratory and non-migratory species. Next slide, please, Alex. Sometimes it's surprising when we say that agricultural is the primary source. I think we can all see that in the media and within the sort of public's viewpoint, sewage pollution is what seems to be getting most of the attention in recent years, but it is secondary to agriculture, with over half of the failing water bodies being impacted by sewage pollution. Scary statistics: nearly 500,000 discharges of untreated sewage going into our rivers last year, up on 2020, accounting for nearly 3.5 million hours of discharge in total. So huge amounts of raw sewage, untreated sewage going into our rivers. Next slide, please, Alex. And obviously, all of that phosphate, nitrate, all that sediment going into our rivers has a huge impact upon the flora and fauna within our rivers. People familiar with the Y catchment will have seen Waters Crowfoot, the ranunculus, virtually disappearing in the last few years because of the pollution on the Y. It's having a huge impact upon freshwater species, which are declining faster than any other species, with 13% of our freshwater species currently threatened with extinction. Next slide, please. But the problem we have is that often it's very difficult to know what the problem is. We know there's a problem. We all know that the problem exists, but pinning down what the problem actually is often a big issue. The statistics here are from the Y Salmon Association, and when they first started to look at the problem on the Y 2-3 years ago, and working with Cardiff University, the first problem they identified was that there's a huge data gap. Water companies currently report on their own performance, and we know that we can't trust them to be honest about the situation. And unfortunately, the EA, for many reasons, are now monitoring fewer sites less frequently, which means that the data we do have is spatially and temporary flawed. It doesn't really tell us anything. So what the Y Salmon Association and Cardiff University realised was that the first challenge, and what they've been doing now for 2 years, is to actually gather information about actual water quality. because unless we know what the problem is and we know where the problem is, it's very difficult to identify meaningful solutions which will actually have a long-term impact and hopefully return our rivers to the state that they should be in. And that recognition of what had been successful on the why is really what's contributed to the Angling Trust's decision to launch the Water Quality Monitoring Network. Next slide, please, Alex. The Water Quality Monitoring Network is an alliance of angling clubs and anglers who on a regular basis go down to our rivers, take samples and assess it for various criteria to understand how good or bad the quality of the water is. So this is a real opportunity to identify what the problems are in order that we can do something about it, but also so that we can hold government to their responsibilities. If people want to get involved in the Water Quality Monitoring Network, basically go to the Angling Trust website, register your interest in becoming a volunteer. We'll then contact you to look at where you can sample. We'll talk to you about how we can provide you with the necessary kit and get you recruited into the programme. Okay, so we as anglers recognise that we're passionate about the places that we fish, and anglers really since the advent of angling clubs have been involved in trying to improve those freshwater environments and to address the problems that anglers see all around them. Whether that's practical work parties, whether that's people signing up for the Army riverfly monitoring initiatives, whether it's going out and pulling balsam or going out and collecting litter. All these things are making a difference on the ground, but what we're not helping to address is that issue of water quality and particularly understanding what those drivers are. So that's what really led to the formation of the Water Quality Network. And hopefully not only will it help to understand what the water quality issues are, what it will also help to do is to demonstrate to people that anglers care about those freshwater environments and are looking to do something about it. Just this last week, I've been somewhat depressed. I attended a meeting locally on a river on the Severn catchment, talking about its the various projects looking to restore the Reebrook. And today I was watching some video from some filming that was done by the Wildlife Trusts on the why. And throughout, at no point were fish mentioned. Invertebrates, freshwater invertebrates were mentioned in passing once, and at no point were anglers or angling referred to as being part of the solution. So I think it's important that not only do we go out there and work to improve our freshwater environments, but we also demonstrate to the wider world and our wider communities that we're working hard to do that. So next slide, please, Alex. So we've talked a little bit about the background and how we've come to where we are. So where we are currently is that we've launched the Water Quality Monitoring Network with a pilot on the Severn catchment. So as I said, since starting with the Trust a few months ago, I've been working with Glyn Marshall down at Worcester, who's our local coordinator for the Severn. We've been working closely with a number of clubs on the Severn catchment, so Birmingham Anglers Association, Shrewsbury Town Fisheries, Girling Anglers, the Grayling Society, the Upper Tannet, and others, to identify a number of volunteers. I've been working very closely with the Wye Salmon Association and Cardiff University to basically take their tried and tested, their proven methodology, and to adapt that to the needs of the Angling Trust, and to source the testing kits needed to equip the volunteers. That went live a couple of weeks ago with the media launch, and we were very lucky to get some ITV Central limelight. We've got in the local press, and we're going to be in some of the fishing magazines over the next few weeks talking about that. And as it stands at the moment, we've now got about 24 volunteers from 8 clubs and organisations monitoring across 30 sites on the Severn catchment. And hopefully that will give us a real understanding of what's happening on the Severn, a river that, as Glyn will tell you, has declined markedly in recent years, and now suffers from algal blooms on a very regular basis. On the basis of the success of the pilot, obviously it's early days, but so far everything's looking good. We hope to roll out the water quality monitoring network within the next couple of months. So at the moment I'm busy talking to clubs, identifying volunteers, working out how much kit we're going to need to equip them, so that hopefully in July we'll be ready to start sending kits out to volunteers outside the Severn catchment. And obviously we're still looking for more angling clubs who want to get involved. You might be asking the question, well, what do you get if you're a volunteer? Well, this is what you would get. You can just see, if you can't see me, which you probably can't because you look at my presentation, you can see in the pictures there a large yellow box. Flambeau have been very good in donating these boxes to the initiative. And inside the boxes, as a volunteer, you get everything you need. So that's a set of test strips to test for nitrates, a phosphate checker to check for phosphate levels, and when you sign up as a volunteer, we'll basically send you everything you need to learn how to monitor water quality. So you get a volunteers pack. There's a series of how-to videos which were produced by Cardiff University, which show you how to undertake each of the tests in real time. And in the box, you'll also receive some laminate cards which take you through step by step the process. So hopefully, if you want to get involved, we can supply everything you need. There is a cost. So the kits currently cost £113 all in, and that will supply you with 2 years supply of test kit, based on the assumption that you test one site once per month. Obviously, if you test more frequently and test more sites, then the consumable element is used up more quickly, but they are also available from us at the cost of about £30 for a further 2 years supply. And we've worked very hard to try to make sure that the kits are affordable. We appreciate the clubs don't always have a lot of money to invest in these kinds of activities, but we think it's an affordable set of equipment. And if clubs really are struggling to fund this kind of activity, but are very keen to get involved, we have some funding available. Orvis have been very kind last year and this year to invest some of their profits from their pro range of clothing into the water quality monitoring network to help to get it set up, but also to help and support clubs where they may not be able to afford the kit to be able to get involved. So if you're interested, if you think it's something that would be useful for you and your club, best thing is to get in contact with me at the Angling Trust, kristian.kent@anglingtrust.net, and we can take it from there. So that's the end of my presentation, Alex.